Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Normas Aina Umi Umar binti Mazni. My ID number is SIP2407-0173 and I will present the question number 1. So, the question number 1 is define inflation and elaborate on the different types of inflation. So, what is inflation? Inflation is a continuous increase in the general price level of goods and services in the economy. Increase in the cost of living that causes lower purchasing power. Other than that, there is an inverse between relationship, inflation, and the value of money. A rise in the general price means a drop in the value of money. Inflation can be measured by using the Consumer Price Index or CPI. Okay, right now I will present 3 types of inflation, which is demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and the last one is monetary inflation. Let's jump to the first one, demand pull inflation. What is demand pull inflation? Demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand in an economy exceeds aggregate supply. This type of inflation is caused by excess demand in fully employed economy. What are the other causes that will affect demand pull inflation? So, the other causes is increase in consumer spending, government expenditure, or even investment. I will give you some simple example for you guys to understand. A new series of iPhone is released. Everyone wants to buy it to follow the trend. Since demand is high but supply is limited, Apple company will increase the phone price. So that is the example of demand pull inflation. The second types of inflation is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation is happen when production costs like rent or raw materials increase. This will leading to higher prices of goods. Cost push inflation caused by a decrease in aggregate supply due to an increase in cost of production for each unit of output produced. The other causes that can be happen is increase in oil prices or even higher wages. The simple example is if the price of bread increase, bakeries will have to pay more for their ingredients. To cover the cost, they raise the price of a loaf of bread. The last types of inflation is monetary inflation. Monetary inflation, a sustained increase in the money supply of a country which leads to price inflation. Money supply increases through an expansionary fiscal policy or expansionary monetary policy. Other causes that will lead to monetary inflation is excessive money creation or government borrowing. Quantity theory of money shows a direct relationship between the growth of the money supply and inflation, which is MV equals to PT. M stands for money supply, V is velocity of circulation, P for price level, and T for transaction of output. I will give you some simple example to be more understand. Imagine you are in a small town where there are only 10 pieces of bread for sale. Everyone in town has 10 ringgit in total and each bread costs RM1. One day, the government prints more money and gives everyone 20 ringgit instead of 10 ringgit. Now, people have more money to spend, but the number of bread pieces is still the same, which is 10 pieces only. Since more people want to buy bread and they have more money, the seller will raise the price for bread to 2 ringgit per piece. The conclusion for each types of inflation is number 1, demand pull inflation, too much demand but not enough supply. Number 2, cost push inflation, higher production costs push prices up. Number 3, monetary inflation, too much money in circulation reduces its value.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Ainur Akira binti Zainurin. My ID number is SIP2407-0096. Today, I will be presenting the factors influencing inflation in Malaysia. Inflation is a complex issue influenced by both domestic and external factors. Let's look at the key contributors. First, government expenditure plays a significant role. When the government increases its spending, it boosts aggregate demand in the economy, which can lead to higher prices. For example, research shows that a 1% rise in government spending may increase the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, by about 0.53%. Next, the exchange rate. When the value of the Malaysian ringgit changes, it affects prices. If the ringgit gets weaker, imported goods become more expensive. which increase the cost of living. Next, unemployment rate. The Phillips curve theory says that when unemployment goes down, inflation goes up. This happens because more people have jobs and spend more money, increasing demand and raising prices. So lower unemployment usually leads to higher inflation. Finally, economic growth can also contribute to inflation. When the economy grows, demand for goods and services increase, which can lead to higher prices. However, in Malaysia, some studies have shown that the link between economic growth and inflation isn't as strong as in other countries. In summary, inflation in Malaysia is driven by factors like government spending, exchange rate, unemployment, and economic growth. Understanding these factors help policymakers manage inflation more effectively. Next, I will be presenting on the causes of inflation in Malaysia. Based on the article provided, I will explain how domestic policies, external factors, economic growth, and sector-specific change contribute to inflation. First, domestic policy measures. The government's policies play a big role in inflation. Two key policies are Round 95 full subsidy cuts. When subsidies are reduced, transport and production costs go up, leading to higher prices. Sales and service tax like SST expansions, more tax on goods and services mean business increase price for consumers. These policies help manage government spending but also contribute to rising inflation. Second, external factors. Malaysia's prices are also affected by global events such as global commodity prices. When oil, food, and raw material prices rise, it costs more to produce goods. Supply chains problem. Shipping delays and trade restrictions make imported goods more expensive. Since Malaysia trades with other countries, these issues affect local prices too. The third factor is economic growth. When the economy is strong, demand for goods and services increase, leading to demand pull inflation. However, if global growth slows down, demand weakens, which can ease inflation pressures. Fourth, sector-specific price change. Certain sectors play a bigger role of inflation. For example, diesel prices increased by 20.1%, pushing up transportation and logistic costs. Food and beverage inflation is at 1.6%, making daily essentials more expensive. These sectors specific change directly impact both business and consumers. In conclusion, Malaysia's inflation is caused by a mix of government policies, external factors, economic trends, and sectoral price change. Managing inflation requires balancing policies, monitoring global conditions, and ensuring stable economic growth.
My name is Nur Irsha Alia binti Yasri. My ID number is SIT 24070285, and I will present about the relevant example how inflation impacts on individuals, society's welfare, and standard of living in Malaysia. Inflation has a significant impact on individuals, society, and the overall standard of living in Malaysia. One of the most immediate effects of inflation on individuals is reduction in purchasing power. As the prices of goods and services rise, people find that the same amount of money buys fewer items than before. For example, if a plate of nasi lemak costs 5 ringgit today but increases to 7 ringgit due to inflation, individuals will either have to spend more or adjust their consumption. This leads to an overall increase in the cost of living, affecting essential expenses such as food, housing, transportation, and healthcare. In cities like Kuala Lumpur, for instance, rent prices have been rising due to inflation, making it harder for lower-income individuals to afford housing. Additionally, inflation erodes the value of savings. If a person keeps 10,000 in a saving account with a 2% interest rate, but inflation is at 3.5%, the real value of their savings decreases over time. This is particularly challenging for retirees or those on a fixed income, as their purchasing power declines while prices continue to rise. Beyond individuals, inflation also affects society as a whole, particularly by worsening income inequality. Lower-income households spend a larger portion of their earnings on necessities like food and transport, So, when the prices rise, they are affected more severely than wealthier individuals. For example, if food prices increase by 10%, a low-income family that already spends 60% of their income on groceries will struggle significantly, whereas a high-income household might not feel the impact as much. In some cases, severe inflation can lead to public dissatisfaction, protests, and social unrest, especially if wages do not increase in line with the rising cost of living. In addition, inflation may push people to rely more on loans and credit cards to afford the daily expenses, leading to a rise to household debt. When financial difficulty becomes severe, there is also a risk of increased crime rates, as some individuals resort to theft or fraud out of desperation. The standard of living in Malaysia is also affected by inflation, particularly in terms of housing, food security, healthcare, and education. As inflation drives up property prices and rent, many young Malaysians struggle to afford home ownership. The increasing cost of food can also force families to purchase lower quality food or reduce portions, impacting overall health and nutrition. A kilogram of rice that used to cost 2.5 ringgit may now be 4 ringgit, making it harder for families to afford stable foods. Healthcare costs are another concern, as inflation raises medical expenses, making treatments and medications less accessible, particularly in private hospitals. Education is not spread either, as tuition fees, school supplies, and other educational costs rise over time, making it more challenging for students to afford quality education without taking on student loans. In Malaysia, inflation for 2025 is projected to be between 2.0% and 3.5%, according to Bank Negara Malaysia, while some items such as fuel and vehicle insurance have seen sharp price increases. Food inflation has been more moderate at 1.6%. However, government interventions such as subsidies and minimum wage adjustment aim to reduce the burden on individuals and society. Despite these measures, inflation remains a major concern as it affects economic stability and the overall quality of life. If not controlled effectively, inflation can lead to long-term economic struggles, making it essential for government agencies to implement strong policies to mitigate its impact.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Azhar Shah bin Muhammad Shahrizan John, and my honor ID is SIT24070106. So, before I start my question, let's understand about inflation in Malaysia. So, Bank Negara Malaysia forecast that Malaysia inflation rate will be between 2.0 and 3.5 in 2025. Major factors consist of modification in food subsidies, the growth of sales and service tax, which is SST, and international economic influence. So let's examine how the government is tackling these problems. Question 4. With supporting data, explain the policy measures the government agency that could be effective in controlling rising inflation in Malaysia based on the article. First, interest rate, which is Bank Negara Malaysia has kept the overnight policy rate OPR at 3.0 since May 2023 to support economic growth while controlling inflation. Inflation remained low at 1.8 on average in 2024. Second, which is open market operation or OMO that conducts by BNM, including repurchase agreement, which is repos and reverse repos to manage short-term liquidity and influence interest rate. This operation helps to ensure sufficient liquidity in the financial system. So second, which is fiscal policy measures by the government. So they focus on targeted subsidy reform. The government had plans to rationalize subsidy to ensure they benefit the most needed groups. The government has introduced targeted subsidy for non-95 petrol, ensuring that financial aid is directed to who need the most. By removing blanket subsidies, the government can reduce excessive fuel consumption and counter budget deficits, thereby mitigating inflationary pressures. So second, expansion of sales and service tax, which is SST. So in May 2025, the SST will be wider to include commercial services and non-essential goods such as imported premium items like salmon and avocados. This initiative aims to increase government revenue without overburdening essential goods. So third, which is introduction of new taxes. So, 2% of tax on dividend income exceeding RM100,000 will be implemented, targeting higher income individuals to enhance revenue. Additionally, a carbon tax focusing on the iron, steel, and energy industries is proposed for 2026 to align with global environmental standards. So third, which is introduction of new taxes. So 2% of tax on dividend income exceeding RM100,000 will be implemented, targeting on higher income individuals to enhance revenue. Additionally, the carbon tax focusing on the iron, steel, and energy industries is proposed for 2026 to align with global environmental standards. So third, supply side policies, which is a focus on minimum wage increase. To bolster domestic consumption and improve living standards, the minimum wage will be raised from 1,500 to 1,700 per month starting February 2025. Small businesses will be granted a 6-month grace period to adapt these changes. Second, investment in infrastructure and job creation. The government emphasizes essentials infrastructure development, prioritizing projects that directly benefit the public and support industrial growth. Key initiatives include the Public-Private Partnership, which is PPP, Master Plan, which aims to increase private investment by RM78 billion and create 900,000 jobs by 2030. So, in conclusion, are these measures effective? So, in my conclusion, Malaysia government is using supply side reforms, fiscal adjustment, and monetary interventions to combat inflation, while taxation and interest rate management aid in lowering inflationary pressures, wage rises, and subsidy reform promote household income and economic stability. Nonetheless, global variables like supply chain interruptions and commodity pricing have an impact on inflation. Long-term stability will require constant observation.